Welcome to ArcisFX Live.
Hi everyone, hello to new member Holger and oh, you're really challenging me today. These are some cool names. Mirquiza and Simon. Thank you, Simon, for that name. Forgive me if I pronounce your names wrong. Sorry, I've got a hat on today. It's a little bit nippy here in the UK, as we say. Right, I hope everybody's okay. Obviously, it's been quite a challenging last few days for traders. Which has been quite frustrating for many. But I'll take you back to the beginning of the year when here at Arcis we were talking about the first move, the January bump, which we can all expect as traders, and it would be the second move which determines the direction for the next few weeks and months. And the second move, unfortunately, wasn't what we wanted. The second move wasn't typically it wasn't up then down then up. It was up then down then and then kind of sitting pretty. So that's the current situation. Thankfully, though, we did have some good news at Davos yesterday that the US administration has backed off, of course. It's threats of, it's difficult to say with a straight face, it's threats of an invasion of Greenland and reciprocal tariffs against the EU if they don't support that. So thankfully, that seems to be at least for now, put to bed. But there is a lot of uncertainty in the markets at the moment because, of course, all it takes is a tweet to start everything up again. Plus, next week, we have FOMC as well, meaning traders are going to be a little bit hesitant over the weekend. And then once we get into, as a result of what's been happening this week at Davos, but also they're going to have some hesitancy next week, knowing that the FOMC statement will be coming out in the middle of the week. So that's the situation we've got at the moment. And how do we trade this? Well, we're going to talk about that the best we can. But first, let's just jump into Bitcoin. Let's get my Bitcoin chart up and running, and let's have a look at the market. Right. Okay. So firstly, before we jump in, just remind you that James has a tech video out today looking at natural gas and some of the stocks and the general direction of things and how things are at the moment. So I encourage you to check that out. It's really good. I've just watched it. Lots of cool ideas and insights into the market. So make sure you check that out. That's on the YouTube channel right now. But any questions, of course, you have about the current state of things, the crypto market as a whole, any particular setups or altcoins you're thinking of trading, or you want to just have a rundown of where the best place to jump in and a potential setup is. But the big picture is, of course, that until Bitcoin manages to make it back above, this is the 15-minute chart, above, it's been the last few weeks we've been using the same moving edge, but the 3-day 200 MA, the 3-day 200 MA, the 4-hour 200 MA, and essentially get back above 90k and flip this level like this, right? Until we manage to do that, we have to presume there's going to be more downside, or at least ranging price action in this area, potentially steep, deep dipping as low as we were back here, which is around, this was where we were just approaching Christmas in December. This was 87.5k, essentially 87.7k. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, 86.5k. So this is a logical floor for the price action to be rejected to, as it hasn't been able to confirm either this double bottom, which, I mean, we had a members live stream with James yesterday, and me and James were watching this happen, and we had this double bottom neckline, which of course is the confirmation line for a move up. But because context is everything, obviously, in trading, and because we've got this double bottom neckline just below resistance, you can see very clear definable resistance here. The 0.618 is essentially acting as resistance too. And until we had a break, a significant break above this, and you'll see I've got this breakout confirmation line. So if I see a break like this, I'm not entering on the flip side just on that small move, right? I'm not doing that, right? So this is to remind me as a trader what I want to see in order to have probabilities in my favor, and for other buyers to come in on the flip side. Therefore, what I want to see, if we did have a break yesterday, we want to see a clear definable move above my breakout confirmation line, which confirms a double bottom, and then obviously gives sellers a bit of chance to get exhausted, as some will try to come in around here. And then, of course, the buyers will potentially have a good opportunity to come in the flip side. Now, we haven't seen that yet. And even though there was some support at around 89K over the last 24 hours, we'll see the price action has started to reject from this area. And we can get rid of this double bottom now, I think. And I was saying in group this morning, if we don't see a break soon, we're going to be coming back down. I have to presume we come back down to this area. And because we've got a bearish slant, and because we are underneath these resistance areas, you'll see the buyers are starting to stack up, starting at around 86.5K, and not many buyers are looking to accumulate in this area, meaning that, you know, the first line in the sand, if you're looking for a range play of sorts, to maybe, if you presume Bitcoin is going to do this and you just want to have a few little in and outs just from here to here, then 86.5K is the first line in the sand I would consider taking a position out for that sort of play, because you can see a lot of buyers are presuming a little bit more downside. And if we just get confused, that's confusing to people. It is the 15-minute chart, I assure you. You can see this dip down here, 19th of December, that's 84.5K. Again, dip further down here, and then of course the downtrend we were in, which bottomed on the 21st of November, that was even lower at around 81K. So you can see how there's a lot of downside potential for Bitcoin at this point, and therefore we have to be very cautious about where we enter, meaning that entrances are all it's about. It's not about entrances in terms of profit potential, it's entrances about managing risk. And therefore, if we enter here and then the price action starts ranging, then great, we can take profits and everything's fine, super duper, right? Add a bit of leverage onto this very small percentage move, 5%, and then you got something to play with. There you go, that's fine. But the reason why you're not going to want to come in here right now here is because, of course, as we keep saying, like a broken record, if the price action does end up getting rejected and comes down from here, you're probably going to have a bit of a battle with the bulls and the bears, giving you multiple opportunities to exit your position or reposition lower should that happen. Whereas if you enter around here and the price action just heads lower, you're going to be left holding the baby. And of course, babies are nice, but you know, we want to give them back to the parents at some point, right? So it's a stupid metaphor, but let's have a look, see what these questions there are. Okay. Great to have you, Control Alt Alpha. Thank you so much. One of our regulars will be a stream without you. Hi, Arcus Drone, which again, I presume is James. Always a bit of confusion there. Is he on the drone? Is he flying the drone? Is he on the beach? What is he doing? Is he? So great to have you, James. Feel free to drop in. And it looks like we're gifting memberships as well. Ooh, that's exciting. Right. Okay. So any questions, of course, I'll get into, but let's have a look at how this is impacting the market. So obviously, when we're entering an altcoin long trade, we want Bitcoin to be at support. And because there, as we've just discussed, there's a lot of support ambiguity. Like, is this support or is this support? Like, where does it stop? Right. This is obviously the local floor, but there's a lot of ambiguity at the moment. And really, what Bitcoin needs to be at is here on the flip side, because then we've got a bullish narrative to trade off. We see this, and then we come back down. We look to take our altcoin positions. Now, unfortunately, the next opportunity potentially for an altcoin long is going to be maybe when we're approaching down to these levels, right? Because the chances of reversal starts to increase as we get down here. But these lines here, the 3-day 200 MA and 89K, they're so significant on multiple time frames that it's going to be very difficult to say let's enter an altcoin a long trade like here at 86.5, because again, it's just not secure or solid support in terms of, I mean, obviously it's okay, it's good support, but it's nowhere compared to being on the flip side of 89K. So therefore, very difficult and challenging environment for altcoins. But let's just check in with Bitcoin dominance and total. Let's have a look. There we go. So currently total 3 ES, which is crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stable coins. We have a double bottom potentially at support. So we haven't had too much bearish fervor on the back of all this trade war nonsense over the last few days. But that's largely because the market was pretty flat anyway, I would argue. But again, if you look at this principally as where do you want total 3 to be to enter an altcoin long trade for short, medium, or long term, this is where you want it to be. So we are principally in a good position. And if you think about, you know, the whole buy fear, buy red then this is ultimately where we want to look to join in. But we can't do that without confirmation either. So it's a nice balancing point between realizing there's an opportunity here if the market turns, but we need to wait for confirmation. And Bitcoin is making that very complicated at the moment. And Bitcoin dominance, I can't believe I just found that first time. Somebody give me a medal. Give me a membership, please. This is Bitcoin dominance 6-hour chart. And again, principally speaking, Bitcoin dominance at resistance, potentially putting a topping pattern in. This is where you want to be to enter an altcoin long trade, right? This is where you don't, because it's inverted. So ultimately, when this is going down, that means money is flowing into altcoins, just broadly speaking, and that can help propel the altcoin market up. And therefore, that's where you want to enter. But you'll see that since we had all of this nice price action over the summer leading into September, the final quarter, this is the October liquidation event, has been very rangy, which isn't particularly good for altcoin trading anyway, because obviously, okay, fine, you enter an altcoin position here, but by the time we get down here, it's take profit time, and that's not enough space to give us some decent gains from a mid cap to low cap token, and decent gains being 50% plus. We're just not going to see it. We'll start to see this move, and then by the time we get down to here, altcoins will start to potentially pick up, broadly speaking. And then once they start moving, we've arrived at support again. So we really need to, of course, have a break and a move further down for any chance of continued kind of altcoin season. But if you are looking to enter an altcoin trade, you need Bitcoin at support with a bullish posture, which it's not. It's below resistance with a bearish posture. And you need Bitcoin dominance essentially at resistance where it is, the top of its kind of recent trading range. So that's good, but the stars aren't fully aligned. We've got Bitcoin total 3, but we haven't got Bitcoin now. So if Bitcoin does make a move and we finally manage to recover, then of course the stars will be a little bit more aligned, and then we can start taking trades. But you can see the problem at the moment. It's very difficult to take some of those positions. MD, good to see you, another regular who it's not a good stream if you're not here. So thanks for joining us. And of course, yes, welcome to our new viewers. I'm Paul. Right. So let's have a run through some setups and just see the current state of things, because there are a few opportunities, and obviously altcoin gems is going to be out tomorrow. I've been working on it today. You can get some insider information now about what I'm looking at. So XMR, Monero, looking at that. Little bit of controversy surrounding its recent move. ADA and IOTX, I think, is going to be featured, but there's also some potential setups with XRP and Filecoin. Excuse me, as I said, it's a little bit cold here today, so apologies for that. So sorry. Right. So let's just run through and see where things are at, because there's always a trading opportunity, but we have to be very mindful now of what we're doing. So if you have a trading setup which has got a TP1, TP2, and TP3, with the current market at the moment, you're going to be looking at TP1s only, quick in and out trades. And of course, if Bitcoin does something different, then we can reevaluate. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, that's disgusting. But this is the way we need to play it. And then the sort of trades we want to be taking are as follows. We want to be taking potential range plays. So I'm going to show you these two. So H bar was a previous setup which gave us about 5-10% move, but didn't manage to, on this bounce, and didn't manage to fully reach our didn't actually manage to put in two gates. It didn't manage to keep going, essentially. So we had an entry here, and we had some nice movement, but then it didn't manage to continue higher, and it just reset. So we haven't quite had the move we wanted from H bar or Ave, but both of them, you'll see, are approaching now support, significant support. Now it's a little bit more clean cut with H bar, but this is, of course, you see a bouncing off point for the price action. Now there is a few levels lower, of course, but we have formed a foundation with this double bottom, so there will be, as you can see, some buyers looking to come in at these current levels. So Ave and H bar are now offering us some really straightforward support entries, and because the market is the way it is at the moment, we need to, of course, be mindful that this is the sort of play, and these sort of plays only are what we should be looking to take. So my plan is to try and a small position as well. I'm not taking big positions at the moment. I'll be looking for a small position here right at the bottom at around 102 for H bar, and then I'll be presuming to take profits at TP1, just a nice little move. I'll obviously put a little bit of leverage on it, aiming for about a 30% profit on this one. And you can see, obviously, the 200 MA is a logical take profit price point. And until Bitcoin gives us something different, TP2 and TP3 are completely out of reach. But if then Bitcoin, once we get that entrance does start to give us some more bullish signals. So say I enter here and then the price action just hovers around here, I may not have any problem staying in the trade. And then if we see a break above, then of course we can look to take higher TPs. But ultimately, I'm not going to be waiting to take profits beyond TP1 until Bitcoin gives us something different. And the window for Bitcoin to give me something different when I'm entering this trade is going to be quite narrow, because it's going to be between essentially the time it takes for me to enter and presumably for a little bounce from the price action. And I need Bitcoin to give me something different whilst it's in this range and before it hits my TP, because principally I'm going to follow my plan. I'm going to take profits at TP1. Therefore, it's going to be a simple range play until Bitcoin does something different at the right time. And likewise with Aave, we've had a double bottom which hasn't been confirmed, but we've had this little one was, and now we're coming back down into support. So it's going to be another range play. We've got TP1 again here at 163 with our entrance at around 146, 145. And you can see again, we've got 200 MA as a logical take profit price point, and it would just be a very simple 10%. Again, add 3x, 2x leverage or something, you got 20, 30% leverage trade. And then of course, if the market shifts, we can look for higher TPs. But this is how we trade in uncertainty. We look for these setups which are resetting back down to support, and there's no guarantee that HBAR and Aave, if the bearish sentiment continues and Bitcoin heads lower, they can very easily just come down, right? But because we're entering at support, there will be a battle of some kind between the bulls and the bears, as the bulls want to try and support this level, meaning that unless we have a black swan event which just does this, ultimately we're going to have a bit of a negotiation before it heads down, which will principally give us lots of opportunities to reposition, maybe even take profits before it heads lower, meaning probabilities of these little bounce trades are going to play out quite nicely. And because we haven't revisited this level since the start of January, again, it'll be a first touch in a couple of weeks. So that's the sort of trading setup I'll be taking over the next few days, because they're the only sort of plays we can have with any manageable probabilities in our favor, and therefore we have to adjust and recognize that the market isn't giving us what we want, and it's going to be quick in and out until we see something different. And then if we do come in at hard support and the market shifts, then we've got a great low average price. And if the pivot to bearish to bullish happens before our TP, then we can reevaluate potentially. But that will be part of my plan to reevaluate prior to entering the trade, and I'll just follow my plan, and I'll only change from TP1 to TP2 if Bitcoin gives me what I want, essentially. We have tech earnings. Do you think that can help BTC? I think in the current state of things, markets, whether the markets, of course, it depends what the other markets are going to be doing, right? I think, of course, everything's at the moment, we're all sitting in the same boat, all of the markets to a degree. Obviously, I'm being over generalistic, but when we've got events which are essentially impacting all markets because they're about the global economic and political situation, then of course all markets get oppressed, typically speaking. Of course, more are resilient than others, and James will be able to discuss that a little bit more detail. But typically when we have events like that affects things, if we get some earnings calls or whatever, which of course helps with one sector, it potentially will offer a little bit of levity for the others. But I think regardless of any of these data points, we're going to have quite a hesitant market over the next few days, just to wait and see if the US administration changes its mind again, or I mean, there was a bit of confusion at Davos because the current president of the United States seemed a bit confused whether he was going to invade Greenland or Iceland. So we don't know. Maybe he's going to invade Iceland next, and we don't know. So Reykjavik, watch out. So we just don't know. But we're going to have a little bit of settle time, I think, over the weekend while people take stock. Then we're running into FOMC week as well. So there's going to be a bit of hesitation. So, best case scenario, I see markets creeping upwards and trying to recover from the shock of the resumption of the trade wars. Apologies again about the issues, and that's probably what I would suggest. I think right now we're all helplessly sitting in the same boat, just hoping for the storm to pass. So yeah, that's my thought on that. But I think James will be able to offer you a little bit more insight into that. But it's not like BTC has been hit and the rest of the market is fine, or the tech sector has been hit and nothing else has been hit. Everything is obviously feeling quite pressed at the moment. That's probably a little bit of a caveman-like interpretation of it. So you're about HBAR, AVAX, and Nicker also. Yeah, and this is the thing. We've been trying to take plays with HBAR and a few of these setups as they've tried to confirm bullish momentum, but the market just hasn't given us the momentum we need to move forward, or rather Bitcoin hasn't. And it goes back to that January bump. What's the next move going to be? If the next move is bullish, then maybe we've got a little bit of bullish fervor for the next few weeks and into February, but we haven't seen that yet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's what counters kind of the news we've been experiencing over the last few days. I mean, what kind of data points are going to make everyone ignore what's been happening? Because you've got to understand that. I don't want to get too into this, but the damage has been done, unfortunately, again, in terms of international relations. And even though we've had a lot of, especially between the United States and the EU, because they've now said they're not going to ratify the trade deal, which they were trying to organize on the back of all the terror threats last summer. Now that may change now. Davos is over, but it's a really just mind-boggling set of circumstances, to be fair. And when we've got situations like this, when we're all of a sudden back in the summer of 2025, it's like, what we're supposed to do, who's taking positions? It's like, it's very difficult. Like, as I said, like, we're taking reduced positions, we're looking for smaller positions. That's not really throwing liquidity at the market to make things move. And again, like FOMC, I mean, what do we need to hear from that to turn the narrative? And at the moment, I don't think it's going to have any impacts, but traders are just going to be more hesitant approaching FOMC, as they usually are, and therefore we're going to have even less activity. So that's my take on it, but we have to wait to see where we are on Tuesday, I think. Yeah, and again, it's like, it's very complicated, and that may be the case, and it's certainly the case that Bitcoin has been lagging behind, and it was at the start of the year as well. But so thanks, mate. Thanks for those insights. But for sure, so it's going to be a complicated picture, and I think the problem is with Bitcoin has a bearish narrative. Let's just put a long-term chart on while I'm chatting about that. Where's the long-term chart? Here we go. Right, so this is a bear flag, right? So this is the bear flag. So this is the Bitcoin situation. Forget everything which has been going on. Golden Cross kicked off the bull run between the weekly 50 EMA and the daily 200 EMA, and then we lost the 50, which was supporting the price action of the whole bull run, which is a sell signal. And then we've also had a death cross now between those two moving averages, which haven't crossed at the start of the bull run. And now we're in a bear flag, and the price action is stuck under the 200 MA, the 3-day 200 MA simple moving average. And if it can't get back above that, this is breaking down. And on the higher time frame, we're looking at 74K is the next line in the sand, all the way down to 69. So principally speaking, it's like, what offsets this bearish narrative, right? And this is typically supposed to be a bear year. So it's, again, with all of this stuff, this is just not helpful, because Bitcoin was trying to maybe have a chance at finding its feet. It made this move. It was going to come back down potentially and then try and break out. And then 101K was the next line in the sand, but we haven't even managed to get up there yet. So the bears are winning completely at the moment, and it's difficult to think that people are going to invest in the currency when you've got TA like this. Yes, it's well, look, Bitcoin's been manipulated since for a long time, since I've been trading, but it's just a different kind of manipulation. And one thing you can look at in terms of the advantage of the ETF stuff and the institutional adoption is that it may save us from a steeper bear market or a more traditional bear market, and we may have the first part of this year might be quite bearish, but then we might start to recover a little bit earlier, and that might be the advantage. Because but it's going to be very interesting to see, because I'm struggling to see. I mean, like 49K for me would be the floor for any bear market for Bitcoin, but I'm not sure that institutional adoption and those players now involved are going to let that happen. So, lots potentially going on in that area. And it's, I mean, I'm trying to offer you guys some clarity, but when we look at the TA, it's pretty clean cut. We're very bearish. We're very, very bearish. And in order for Bitcoin to offset that narrative, we've got to have stability. We have to, and we're just not getting it. And it's very curious, the fact that, the US administration was talking quite a little bit about Bitcoin and cryptos and the legislation they're trying to get through and get passed and all of this stuff, because of course we know that the Trump family is quite heavily invested, for better or worse, asterisk. And it's very interesting to see how this is going to work. So we have big players involved manipulating the market, and at the moment it feels like they're manipulating the market against what we're trying to achieve. But maybe as the price action starts to break down, they might come to the rescue. Who knows? But we can only trade the TA. And remember, 2020 is supposed to be a bear year, like 2022 was, and 2018 before it. So that's the idea. So we have to change our narrative. And as we previously said, that unless Bitcoin can get back above the 50, which is all the way up here, right, we don't have a hope of touching all new highs or any kind of bullish momentum until that happens. It doesn't mean Bitcoin can't do it, but that's the sort of situation. So just yeah, the thing is, right, the interesting thing is I've been watching some of the tech stocks, and as a tech guy, I'm focusing a little bit on Nvidia and the AI side of things and the bubble side of things, as I am quite concerned about issues at the moment with a slightly overinflated market. And I'm not in a position to talk about this with any authority, and James is the one to talk to. Maybe we'll talk about this next Wednesday. But the issues with memory shortages, and what that is essentially doing is that you're having manufacturers like partner manufacturers with Nvidia, like Asus, MSI, I can't be, I'm getting a bit confused, Gigabyte, all that kind of stuff, who gets the fabs, they build the cards, but they get the stuff from Nvidia. You know, a lot of their models are, they're putting them to one side because they don't, and to focus the memory they're putting in on the more profitable card. So as an example, if you have a high-end Nvidia graphics card which has 16 or whatever gigabytes, 32 gigabytes of memory, and it has a high price point, the dollar per gigabyte of memory value for those cards is much more significant in terms of take home for the companies than it is for a mid-range card with similar amounts of memory, which the dollar per the profit per gigabyte of memory is less, because it's not as an expensive card, but it still requires the same sort of memory, just a lesser processor. So you're seeing that so you're seeing that a lot of these companies are cutting off some of their key models, right, making it very high end, making the high end models still available, restricting what they're doing. And when we're in the AI space, when all that people are after are these graphics cards, it is creating a bottleneck. It is creating a bottleneck. And even though, and we've had obviously a lot of problems as well coming out of manufacturing for the Apple processors as well, and the difficulties. And when we have supply constraints starting to rear its head, not just with memory, but also demand from typical processor manufacturers, that is going to have a roll-on effect potentially. And if you're one of the people who thinks that the AI thing is a little bit more of a bubble, then you can start seeing the risk building as well. So, you know, it's a very curious picture for 2026. But what we do know is that the whole trade war stuff doesn't help with supply issues, right? It doesn't help, right? And the whole AI thing, of course, is not particularly helpful to retail people either, because if they want to build a computer, it costs a load of money compared to what it used to do. Like, so a memory upgrade is going to be 3 or 4 times what it was like a couple of years ago. And there's a whole load of problem there, right? And if you just think about those issues in terms of, you know, all of the demand which is being filled, and then if it's all going into the AI space, what happens if people suddenly realize, look at Meta, who renamed their company based on the whole virtual reality space. And now they're cutting off jobs, and they're just going in a different direction, and they name the whole company after it, right? So there's a lot, and this is the thing. So there's a lot going on, and you know, James is best to comment on the tech space, but as a tech bro, I do see problems here. Reading all these information, they screw up the 4-year cycle, those ETFs. Well, is screwing up the 4-year cycle a bad thing? Because if it leads to lesser bear market, right, then great. But if you want to talk about altcoins, and let's just go back to the altcoins for a minute. So let's just put this up. We'll talk about this setup in a minute. Now, if this is 2021, right? So this is the first kind of bull run peak, and this particular asset went up 860% in just a few weeks. And then the second peak, which is typically the biggest, because we had another peak in November in 2021. And so we had a reset, Bitcoin pulls back, and then that all of those profits made from the first leg up in 2021 bull run then got thrown into altcoins, and then it put in another 1,605% gains. Now, this is, I presume, this is the start of the bull run, right? And this, I imagine this is peaking around March, April, yeah, because I was trading then. This move so far was only 500%. And then once Bitcoin broke all-time highs from the previous bull run back in March 2024, that was it. And we've been selling off. Now, you can say that because the market is now so diverse, there are many more cryptocurrencies, many more tokens. It's not as simple as all of them now have to go up, because the amount of money involved and the amount of liquidity needed in order to shift the whole market up to those levels, it's arguably not there. People are a little bit more invested in specific projects. There is a little bit of signs of a depegging from Bitcoin as well, meaning that the landscape is getting a little bit more sparse. Sparse is the word. In terms of, certain coins are moving with a lot of interest, right? So you're having things pump. Certain coins or tokens like ZEC and so forth, poor ZEC, you're putting in 1,000% gains, but the rest of the market is pretty much sitting pretty, and a lot of low caps are not seeing any of the love. We did see the money flow start to move with Ethereum and so forth, but it didn't get past kind of the first couple of phases of the money flow trickling down. And the market has changed fundamentally. It really has. It's changed fundamentally, and I'm not sure we're going to necessarily see these traditional altcoin seasons as we have before. But again, I don't want to say that we're not going to see some epic runs, because we can. And we will. And maybe the reason why we didn't see some epic runs last year is because, again, of these constant issues with the economy, the tariffs, and the trade war. Because in order for the money flow to get from Bitcoin profits down to the low caps, so the whole market gets lifted up, you need consistency, and you need environment which is supportive of risk assets. So there's multiple factors here. I don't think we can say we didn't have an altcoin season because the market has fundamentally changed. It's more diverse, and there's just not enough money to lift it all up. That's part of it. But it's also, we haven't seen stability economically to facilitate those moves either, right? Well, I mean, I would argue that were they ever alive to begin with? I mean, Doge, of course, has broken through to the mainstream. And the advantage of trading meme coins, of course, is they really move on bullish signals, and then they really reset on the first sign of trouble, right? And but it's trying to figure out what the market is at the moment is very challenging, because if we had 6 months of peace and calm and prosperity, and then the altcoins still didn't move when Bitcoin was ascending higher, right? Then we've got something to play with. But ultimately, it's a very, very complicated situation right now. But all we could do, and this is the most important thing, don't count the altcoins out just yet, right? I am consistently moving a lot of my positions down, down, down. I'm following the market with it in the hopes that when the market reverses, then I'll have extremely low price points in all these decimals with these low caps, and then I'll make my money. So I am just waiting, but I do have some of my investment positions which are way out of reach. And if the market continues down, they'll just become pointless and worthless. And any bull market which follows in the next few months or the next year or so, the peak will probably just be where I got in originally on some of those positions. But thankfully, because I've scaled in to a lot of these positions to go with the market, I have the majority of my positions still in my control, meaning I can just follow the market down step by step. And right today, I'm waiting for another Victoria VR entry for some smaller investment positions, because I've been riding the little pumps, improving my bag, and then coming back down, reevaluating the TA, and then coming back down to, let's put Victoria VR up, and then coming back down to enter at a lower price point. Another way you can increase your bag in difficult trading conditions, because what I've been doing is I've been buying at this support line, getting these pumps, selling, and then because I did this with the market crash as well. This was the same level, which I had a buy order in for VR, made a quick 20 or so, 30%, got out, and then re-entered back down here, had another pump, increased the size of my position another 20%. And now again, right now, I'm looking to re-enter. And I think my position is frustratingly is about 90% filled. And I've just been waiting all day for it to be filled. But there are ways you can make money, right? You just have to establish a trading range, establish good support, and come in at very manageable entries in case you come down. And then just when you see a pump, because it's a low cap, take your profits, reposition down there again. So you can do that compounding of profits. There's still things you can do, right? And it's probably, this is the most stress-free version of trading, right? Because you're just like, okay, I'm here, it's fine. If it comes down too low, I'll look to exit and reposition down here. Or if I get a pump, I'll take profits. My bag's increased, then I'll come back down. But you know, it's very curious times. But if we zoom out with VR just for a second, just as an example, this is an AI sort of token. Now, if we zoom out of VR, you can see what I'm trying to achieve, right? You can't. Let me just clear this off. Here we go. You can see what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to accumulate all the way down here as much as I can, because if and when it does go 2,000, 3,000%, right? That's a significant, those are significant gains. That's what we want. And therefore, you know, I'm still working. We should still be working on the presumption, but I don't have necessarily all the answers right now to what's going to be happening. Yeah, but the thing is, you know, we just talked about Aave and let me just put that back on. We just talked about Aave and HBAR, and if Bitcoin heads lower from here, I can absolutely see these things. We've lost the 200 MA coming back down here and just moving lower. Of course, right? But I'm still coming in at support because it's a manageable play. It's a manageable entrance. It's something I can manage despite all of the issues in the market at the moment. And therefore, you've got to be very selective. And of course, you know, I've labeled all these TPs for our group members to highlight the fact that, look, it's TP1 time, right? TP1 time, that's it. Come in to support TP1. We're not going to be doing any bull flag continuation pattern plays. We're not even probably going to be doing any double bottom breakout plays, right? Because we just don't have the momentum right now, because like people who are trading HBAR, me too, you know, we're getting these meager moves. Fine, it's tradable, it's pretty good compared to other markets, 10%, whatever, right? It's good, but it's not what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve is double bottom, breakout of this, buy around here, take profits up there, but we're just not getting it, right? But let's talk about this just for a second. So this is IOTX. This will be an altcoin gem, I think, mañana, tomorrow. So this is the play. We have a clear definable range. This is the weekly chart, right? And again, you know, you've got to realize everything's really hesitant right now. So I'm just taking hard support buys. We got some bullish divergence. We got oversold conditions, and on the weekly, that's pretty significant. That does highlight the bearish narrative. Of course, I don't think we've actually been this low with this asset on the weekly. So, you know, good opportunity, maybe, right? But we are at support, approaching support. The POC and the vals just below, with a little bit of bullish divergence between on the MACD. Not a big fan of the MACD, but nonetheless. And the idea would be to come in as low as support. And if we do get a pump, then there you go. There's 1,600%, right? Just on here. So there's no problem with people just starting to load up on their bags a little bit, because they're on tokens which are manageable positions, right? So just zoom in a little bit, right? So yeah, I'm not coming in just yet. We need to wait, right? So presuming Bitcoin has a bit more bearish further and it comes down, then that's going to give us an entrance point, right? So if Bitcoin say, what's this percentage decline, right? What's this? This is the October crash. So we got 56% potentially to go, right? And even though it looks like it's trying to bottom at the moment, I'm not going to put I don't care too much about that. You know, again, it's all about getting in a manageable position. So you could say to yourself, right, here's a level. Let's just make that dashed. Looking at this TA here, we've got the POC, right? Okay, so I'm not going to come in on the backside of the POC, but this is what I'm going to say to myself. I say, right, okay, I'm going to start accumulating here at what is around 540, add more when we get down to around 390, and we've got a lot of confluence there to come in. And then if the market does start messing around down in this lower area, the bulls are probably going to have a play, and we're going to have this sort of price action, which is going to give us the opportunity to reposition. But if I'm chasing this and I'm coming in, say here, right, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. And therefore, we have to be very mindful. These are very volatile assets, and we just need to come in as low as we can for the opportunities. And it's pretty much straightforward support trading at the moment. But I'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow. But nice little play, nice little setup. But that's a long-term play for sure. Let's just run through a few other setups. Any setups you want me to have a look at, just let me know, and I'll jump in. So this is Filecoin. We had a cup and handle pattern, which was about, this is the 14th of January, was about to break out. But unfortunately, then we got all the bearish news, and we've now reset. Now, the advantage of coming in for a hard support buy on the back of a failed cup and handle, it shows that the TA and the normal market conditions was trying to break out above this clearly defined neckline at around 1.69 or 1.7, right? So this support buy here at around 1157, if we get it, and if we scroll back, I think this is actually a lower range we haven't been in for a while. Let's just switch to the weekly. I was looking at this earlier, the daily. Yeah, so this is pretty much a floor defined by the base of this this arc, and therefore it's not a bad play to come in. It's not the best scenario because it's not, we've long since lost long-term support with Filecoin. Just switch to the weekly, just check I'm right about that. I was analyzing this earlier. Yeah, so you can see, just big picture, we are down here on the floor, but you can see that there's a lot of interest in this token reversing, but it's just been reset. So you may have people coming in here at support to try and front run a breakout again if the price action can recover. And this has been a bouncing off point as well. So I think coming in here is a really safe bet, but safe bet is the key word here. We're trying to trade difficult market conditions, and therefore we need to be in manageable play, and therefore coming in right at all-time bottom, there's going to be some liquidity there. There's going to be people looking to buy, and therefore, yeah, you're just below the price action. I want to come even lower, right? I want to come even lower, but there is a play here, of course, because you can say, oh, I'm going to come in now. It's great, but why are you coming in now? Bitcoin's below resistance, right? So you have to presume this is going to head lower. So that's a play with Filecoin, really straightforward, just coming in at support. It's not complicated. And then again, you've got our clearly defined TPs here, which depending on the market conditions, once you get your entrance, you can then determine which is the most appropriate to take. With Filecoin, TP1, TP2 are obviously on the cards, but it's the key thing is you have to assess once you've got your entrance, because if the market is going to push Filecoin back down here, it's going to have a bearish narrative, and you need, of course, it to arrive at support with the bearish narrative to change. But nonetheless, it's a safe play. We're going to have extremely oversold conditions on multiple time frames if we get down here. That's how you trade in difficult times. And if we don't get the entrance, no big deal. We've got a clear definable neckline to trade. And by the time Filecoin gets back up here, we'll probably have the daily 200 MA in February a little bit more flush, which makes it a better setup. So, that's the way I'm approaching the market at the moment. AVAX and Link. Yep, let's have a look at AVAX and Link. AVAX plus Link. Coin, what's the gas? Yeah. Right, let's have a look. So AVAX. Have I got an AVAX chart? Let's just do a clean look at AVAX. Always good to do a clean look. Get out of the mindset which we were stuck in before. Here we go. Right. Okay. Well, here we go. Okay. So let's just double check. Just put it on the daily chart. Have a quick look. Right. Double bottom forming. There we go. Okay. So this has been a bounce point. Right. Just get a lay of the land. Right. Don't need to overthink it. Just get a lay of the land. Don't need to think about that just yet. Bounce point from here. Here we are. So we've had, this has been a bounce point and a stopping point for the price action. That tells us something about this lower level, which is essentially around just approaching just below $10, right? So that's been a bounce point. Again, a bounce point just above $10, bounce point at around 9, just before $10. So therefore, where are we here? Okay, so you'll notice again that this October crash that stopped here as well at around here. So we do have a double bottom forming. Right now, I did say we shouldn't be taking double bottom plays right now, but let's just have a look. Double bottom plays, right? So we do have a double bottom. Okay, so there we go. But we know that this below is more likely support as well. So let's clearly define that for our minds, for our emotions. Let's just check that these areas are right. I think this is it. There we go. There's your buy zone. There's your ideal buy zone. Okay, now let's see what the moving averages are doing. Pressing the price action, which is making it a little bit complicated. Let's just put the neckline on. Just confirm, there's the neckline, there's the range. So yeah, okay. Now the reason why double bottoms are pretty decent to trade is because obviously, you know, you say to yourself, right, if we get a break of the neckline, I'm going to look for an entrance, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to look for a textbook entrance like this, right? It all depends on the nature of the market. But once you see a break, then you can start assess potentially entrances which are above this area. So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, with AVAX, unless we see a break of the double bottom, presume we're coming down here to around 9.5. Presume that, and then that's your pickup. There's your play, right? And then you've got options to range play it, or you could get a nice low average price if we do have a bullish move, which I don't think we're going to see just yet. So that's the idea. And of course, we're not going to get that double bottom neckline confirmation unless Bitcoin recovers, and therefore it's probably a no-brainer. So we don't want to be coming in here. We need to wait for bullish confirmation, and we haven't got that yet. So we have to presume we're coming back down here, and then this will be where you start to accumulate around 922. That's my play with AVAX on first look. Hi Lola, good to see you too. Thanks for joining us. So what else is Link, Chainlink? I was looking at this morning. Have I got it open? Yeah. Okay. So again, what does this tell you when you look at it? Right. We've tried to bottom out. We haven't managed to surpass this swing high in the start of December. Even the January bump couldn't get us. You know, we had a topping pattern instead. So let's just get a lie of the land. Topping pattern. So it's not looking strong, right? So this is the moving averages was acting as the neckline. We've had confirmation. So where are we heading, folks? We're heading down here. Let's just double check this area. This is a bounce point for the price action. That's a bounce point for the price action. Here you go. Not a bad place to accumulate. Not as clearly defined as I would like, but nonetheless, you know, this is a level at around, again, $10. Wow. $10. So again, Link, waiting game now, unfortunately, and it just accumulated this level 10. There's no reason. Obviously, you know, you could see there is a level here, but in these sort of conditions, at the moment, until Bitcoin gives us something, you can't. I'm not going to come in here, right? I'm not going to come in here because it's just we've got this bearish signal. We've already lost this here, so I'm going to just wait. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. But that's the play here with Link, again, coming in around $10, right? Really straightforward. It's a hard support buys. That's the name of the game at the moment. Right. Controller Alpha, do you actually want me to have a look at Filecoin? do you want me to have a look at Filecoin? To say now will forever hold your peace. And one of my students used to trade Filecoin all the time. I don't know why. Don't know why, but they did. Let's just run through a few more setups, then we'll close. So this is right. Okay, so this was Bonk, altcoin gem from last week, still in play. The idea, we talked about this in the last session. You know, we're looking at the 50 MA, take profits up here, but again, we had our entrance. It came into play, didn't work out because of the market and because of the news, but we still have an opportunity with Bonk, right? So some setups are still in play, and it's quite manageable too, because again, Bonk is at a point where the price action typically reverses from, right? So you have to look at everything in context, and Bonk right now isn't a bad place to accumulate. Are you going to accumulate right now before Bitcoin gives us a signal? Some setups you could, right? You could. In all honesty, but it's going to be a small position, right? Because of course, you know, the money is made, you know, when the market is red, you know, we buy the fear, and that's the whole idea, right? We buy the fear. Now, we've had a bullish signal in terms of the politics and the economy. We just need to see the recovery reflected in the price action. So I would wait for clarity from Bitcoin for sure, right? But it's undeniable that this is not a bad place for Bonk to come in at. So if say I'm thinking of investing 5K in Bonk, right? As a setup play, whatever, right? Just say I was going to do that. I'm not entering 5K here. I'll maybe enter 1K, right? See what happens, right? And then I'll if we start moving around, I'll start adding in this area once we retake the 50 and all that kind of stuff. So there's some setups and opportunities, but again, we need Bitcoin to play ball. right now. Let's have a look around to Doge. Now, Doge is a setup which is invalidated. It's invalidated. We've lost the bullish context. We're in this lower range now. So Doge is off the table. It's done for now. Ethereum is in a good position because we've lost the bullish narrative and we've reset back to support. So again, that's a hard support buy plays in these of certainty. So Ethereum is not in a bad position to accumulate. XRP is not either. XRP is in our ideal retracement zone, but again, we need confirmation from Bitcoin. So you could start to accumulate, right? With the hopes that Bitcoin is going to recover and then really add to your position once we get confirmation of a recovery from Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin heads lower from here, XRP is just going to continue to come down to the POC, which is acting as support at the moment, which is around 1.85. So there's an opportunity here, and there's nothing wrong with starting to accumulate in manageable positions, because if you start accumulating XRP here and it heads lower, you're in a good position to reposition lower, as we're talking about with VR, right? But we shouldn't be chasing anything. So there are a few opportunities, but not whole positions, much smaller positions. Presume it's going to head lower and therefore enter in these places which are going to, you can see here, like, it's been dancing around the POC all throughout December, meaning that, if you've come in for an entrance here for this move, it will come, right? Eventually, if we get that. But for me, so just a lot of caution here. And just if setups you are going to invest in and you're going to take plays in, very modest, very, very, very mindful that, okay, you want to enter at low price points. You don't want to be entering XRP here at 2.2. You want to be entering XRP down here lower at 1.18, 1.19, whatever, right? And you're not going to get those low price points when Bitcoin is moving upwards, right? So you have to have a nice balance between scooping up these lower prices, but not throwing too much money at the market when we haven't got confirmation from Bitcoin, right? So very, very, very hesitant plays right now. And let's just check in, is there anything else going on? Let's just check in with FLR. FLR is a support as well. That's hit our entrance target, but because this is quite a volatile asset, this is not the sort of play I would take, especially when we've got a dip. I'll be looking essentially for a move a little bit lower. So everything's contextual, right? You have to look at things properly, but you got to look at it first from a point of view of risk. And anything else taking but right. So this is Bitcoin. Let's end with this. So no, let's not end with this. Let's end with another one. So where is the, heading down right now? Let's have a look. Okay, just trying to find the chart I want to show you. Right, I want to show you this. Here we go. So this is a ascending triangle which we've been in, and we've now, you can see how the price action has been stuck behind and now on the underside of this ascending triangle. Right, this is a bearish scenario. This is where we are at the moment. Right now, it could still be a bear trap. Right, this could still be a bear trap for sure. It could be a bear trap for sure. So you could say to yourself, okay, if Bitcoin heads below here, then it confirms further downside, of course. But right now, when we've got the price action just sitting like here, it could just come back in. Right, so it's very difficult to take a short position or anything like that. But we have a bearish narrative, unfortunately, at the moment. But hopefully that will change. Hopefully that will change. Let's have a look. It's interesting how you use the MAs as support and resistance levels rather than entry triggers such as crosses, MACD. Most traders do. Yeah, look, obviously we've been talking about crosses, right? We've been talking about the bearish narrative. We've been talking about that sort of thing, and they are tradable events. There's setups which I'll say, look, we've had a golden cross. We've had a 50 crossing the 200, and they're important things to trade off but they're just confluence points. So say you've got a double bottom, and you've got a clear definable neckline and an asset, and there is a golden cross of some kind happening with that, then that makes the setup more attractive over another one potentially, which is just a simple double bottom, right? That's the idea. But I've never acted on any one of those things, and I know a lot of traders do, put a lot more force behind the MACD and these crosses. But in my experience, the MACD obviously is a lagging indicator. In my experience, that what you want to find is confluence wherever you're going, and a golden cross can act as one level of confluence, but the moving averages and moving averages across multiple time frames. This is why we've got the 4-hour 200 MA and the 3-day 200 MA on this chart, because we've got multi-time frame support, which makes it much, much stronger. And therefore you combine all of those elements to have a definable range to trade. Because also, you got to understand that what do bots trade off? right? What do programmable bots trade off? They trade on these interactions with moving averages. You arrive at a 200 MA and they're programmed to buy, right? Things have got a bit more sophisticated now, but they're programmed to buy and they're programmed to sell on the breaks of these moving averages as well. So, it is my approach. There's many other ways to trade these assets with more, using the MACD and so forth. There's a way to do that, but I've never found success necessarily with that. And when I started looking at points of confluence across multiple timeframes, and moving averages are a key point of confluence across multiple timeframes, including for crosses, then I've been more successful. And I mean, arguably that it's always about multi-time frame approach, isn't it? It's, you want to see a good setup on a 4 hour, and it wants to look just as good on the 4 hour as it does on the daily, right? And if it looks good on the daily and it looks good on the 4 hour, boom, you got the intermediate trend and the primary trend locked in, and therefore you got a good probable setup, right? And I think that's one of the things people miss. And moving averages can give you insight to the multiple time frames whilst just glancing at one trade setup. So I can look at Bitcoin 4 hour, but still be aware of the 3-day chart and the important support levels on there, which is why you'll see all these different moving averages, EMAs, SMAs, and so forth in different charts, because again, it gives me an insight without having to look at multiple charts at the same time. That's the way I approach it anyway. I presume that's no to the Filecoin thing. Good answer. ICP is going again to $500 left. Let's have a look at ICP. Let's have a look at ICP. Have I got ICP open? Yes. No, I don't. Where is it? ICP. I do have a chart for ICP. Let's load it up. And this can be what we end on. Here we go. Right. Yeah. I mean, we had a good play with this. This was a good setup. We had an entrance here for group and gave us a nice 70%. So this was a good thing. But obviously 70% for ICP is nada. It's nothing compared to what it can give us. So again, in a good position to accumulate at the moment at support. But am I going to say, because you could zoom in, right? Let's just zoom in, right? You can say, okay, so all right, let's just turn it to the 4 hour. Thank you for everyone being here as well. It's nice to have such company. So let's just say we got a not particularly clear double bottom, right? Okay, but we do have a trading range as well, right? It's a lower low, so it's not the best, right? But we've got a clearly definable neckline of sorts or a breakout of this trading range, blah, blah, blah. And you've got a falling wedge of some sort as well. Now, typically, good setup, right? Bottom, bullish confirmation, come back in, watch for the break of the falling wedge, and then you come back in on the flip side, right? Great setup, great play. And if Bitcoin recovers, that's going to play out. But Bitcoin is again at stuck below resistance. And therefore, I'm looking at this with a lot of skepticism, because if Bitcoin heads lower, again, it's below resistance. We're coming back down here. And therefore, the only play at the moment, I would argue, is coming in at support again for ICP, which would be a good play. And it's not a bad play either, because if you were coming in at support again here, and the price action hadn't broken out into the upper range, then this support area might be a bit shaky and we could risk coming back down. But because we've had this bullish move, that's great. That's awesome. It's showing that we've got that curving round. But because we have to look at the money flow isn't where we want it to be, and therefore we have to presume this is probably going to come down. I mean, you could say, I'll wait for a breakout, right? And if you get it, maybe you could enter, but we're probably not going to get the breakout anyway. So ICP is a good position, potentially. If you want to take that trade, you could do, right? But I'm going to say that right now, the money flow is not where we need it to be. And bearing in mind that Bitcoin is king, it could pull this down. So coming in around 2.8, 2.7 is still a good play for ICP. And then, of course, if it moves, right, you have the lowest possible price point. And then if the market turns, you get to benefit from these crazy gains, and you've got a clear definable range. But that's my thought on ICP at the moment. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We've got a couple of hundred people today paying attention. Thank you so much. Again, great tech video from James. Make sure you check it out from earlier today. Give it a like, give it a comment to help support the channel. If you're not already in a private group, please consider joining. We've just moved across to Circle, we've got which is very exciting for the group. Everyone's very excited. We're gonna have a big debate about whether we're gonna have dark mode or light mode soon on the thing. And of course, I'll have altcoin gems for you tomorrow as well. And then James, of course, will be back for his amazing Sunday night live session on, guess what, Sunday. But thanks for everyone to joining us. Thanks for the new members who have joined us today. Control Alpha, I love our appreciated regulars, MD, and of course, Lola. Thank you so much for being here, and anyone I've missed. And James, of course, thanks for dropping in. We really appreciate your insights. It's very helpful to have you there when we're talking about stocks. But that's it for now. Take care, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. All the best.